You're listening to Lemon's Listening Library. Discover the story behind the stories with unique and raw conversations from the people who make your favorite books a reality. All right, welcome to this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. I'm your host, Randie Lemons, and I'm joined today by my amazing co-host, Kathy. Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yep. I'm Kathy Ireland. I read audiobooks. That's pretty much what I read. Is I consume my books by audio. I also do audiobook project management. So the production of the whole audiobook process, I manage that. So that's some cool stuff.
Awesome. You're amazing. You get to do it all. All right. So before we jump into introducing our guest, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you guys are interested in joining our Patreon services, we have advertising available to where you can advertise your books or services on the podcast. It's a great way to support the show, and it's a great way to get your work out there. So if you're interested in that, go check it out. It's on our Patreon. We also have a really amazing event happening on January 11th. It is an author event for indie authors to have snippets of their books read live by professional narrators. It's a 24-hour event for human voices only. So we're doing this huge push where we are allowing a lot of narrators to get their voices out there, show their talent, let indie authors get snippets of their books read and come to life, because that's super exciting and fun for indie authors to hear that for the first time. And it is a good way to help migrate your platform from TikTok to other areas just as a safety net. So that's happening. If you're interested, go to our websites and we will get you information on that. So,
Yes.
All right, guys. Enough of my babbling. We are so excited to introduce Nicole today. Nicole, will you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
My name is Nicole Holland, and I'm 35, and I live in Texas with my husband and my 2 dogs, and I'm a newer indie author. I started in 2022, so it's only been a couple years so far. So I'm going through the growing pains of learning what to do and, more importantly, learning what not to do. So it's been a lot of fun, though, and I've really, really enjoyed it. And writing is something that I just did for fun kind of growing up, and now it's turned into something where it's actually turned into a story, which is really cool.
So you started writing when you were younger?
I did a little bit, but it was just kind of dabbling in storytelling and writing little things here and there, but it was just something I did for fun and not anything that I really thought something would come from. So it's cool to see that it has come to fruition in the form of fantasy novels.
What got you to that point where you were probably in the civilian world or whatever you were doing, and then deciding to, okay, this is something that I want to pick up and do for real?
Yeah. I had a government job for a long time, and the hours were very, very difficult, and I was very unhappy. And I started writing as a creative outlet, as a way to deal with that job unhappiness. And then I had some medical stuff happen with my husband pretty soon after that. And so diving into fantasy books was my way to kind of escape my reality, for him being sick, for me being unhappy. I had to switch jobs, we had to move cities, and it all happened in a really short period of time. So I needed nothing that was close to nonfiction. So I tried to go all the way over to fantasy and something that would just take me out of what was going on, and ended up falling in love with reading it, and then had the audacity to think that I could write stories like that. And I just tried it, and here we are.
Yeah. So you have a kind of a similar experience to Kathy, where, life is kind of just getting a little rough. And then you have this moment where you're reading this book and it kind of separates you from life enough that you can like take a deep breath and just be like, it's going to be okay. And I think that that's something that is really interesting with fantasy and reading in general, is where you can, it's not like you're escaping your life. There's a lot of negative connotation around, it's reading is just an escape. It is an escape in the moment, but it gives you this space, this gap away to where you are not just drowning.
Yeah. it's almost like it's a place to go outside of your reality that it helps bring you back to your own reality and kind of be able to tackle whatever it is that's going on.
Yeah.
So.
For me, it was, I could experience, because I listened to audiobooks, so I could experience the emotions of the characters through, the narrators bringing that to life. And that just kind of gave me the space to step away from my own emotions, to kind of let my mind and everything process, and then go back and, deal with my own shit.
Yeah. Sometimes you need that, like the pause button where you can get in the emotions of other people or characters and then come back to yours, and like a little reset in a way. It's very helpful. Yeah. And that's what I love about fantasy too, is it is fantastical, and we create worlds and creatures that don't even exist, but they're all very real themes that people deal with every day when it comes to friendship and love and loss and all that kind of stuff. Regardless of how fantastical the world is, we're all going through similar things that are in fantasy books. So that's one of my favorite things about the genre, is you can create whatever you want, but it's still grounded in emotional reality.
Yeah. And there's so much stuff that ties back into our real lives that we don't realize too. Like, I mean, if you think of, a fantasy author who's writing about a character who is dealing with a bunch of different creatures, and they're finding out different abilities for these creatures, and they're finding out different, ways to deal with them and help them move through things. You can compare it to real life. Like, you can compare that to having kids or having coworkers or something, to where you're like, oh, they dealt with it by taking a deep breath and connecting with that animal or that creature. I also need to do that with my children.
Yeah. It really does. It all ties in together, and you can learn from everything out there and apply it to your real life, even if it seems so far-fetched and so far away. Everything is applicable to everything at some point, I feel like.
Yeah, I love that.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, because I'm very interested to know about how ACOTAR really caught your interest, and what was it about that series that that you liked, that you kind of want to not emulate, but you know what I'm saying? Like, draw from. I want to know that.
Yeah. So it's kind of a funny story. Well, it's not really too funny, because it was when my husband was in the hospital and he was sick, and so I was spending a lot of time there. So I needed something to read, because I was there for most of the day. And it was at the time, I think it was mid 2022, and it was when A Court of Mist and Fury was all the rage on TikTok. And I opened my phone at my house before I was going to go to the hospital, and I just typed in fantasy book recs into TikTok, and I watched about 10 videos, and probably 6 of them had Mist and Fury in it. And that really bright blue cover stood out to me, that minty greenish blue cover, because that's one of my favorite colors. So I didn't do any research, because I had a lot going on up here. I went to Barnes and Noble, I grabbed a book, and I walked out. So I started reading the series with the second book, because I didn't do any research, and I'm probably the only person in the world who didn't read Thorns and Roses first and read Mist and Fury first.
That's probably the best way to do it.
I was like, yeah, I'm like, I kind of felt like I was missing a little bit, but then there was some backstory that was dropped into the second book. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe this isn't just the storytelling. But yeah, people always laugh when I tell them that I started with that book, and I'm probably the only person that's ever done that. But I was so burnt out and overwhelmed. I just had tunnel vision. I couldn't even tell that the other books were on the shelf in similar colors that all went together. I just grabbed it and walked out. And then that was the first fantasy book I ever really read. I had one James Patterson book. It was a dystopian novel, like 2 Nicholas Sparks books at the time, and then the rest was nonfiction. And I didn't want to read any of that.
No reading Nicholas Sparks right then. That's not a good idea.
That's not what I'm going for. Give me something else. Give me something that I can just transport into a different world. And that's what I needed. And I was introduced to everything, to fae and magical powers and all this kind of stuff. And it was exactly what I needed to let my mind have an escape. And then I thought, I'm a pretty creative, crafty person. Maybe I could write something, along these lines of any kind of fantastical themes. And so I started writing my first book, Rellington, which is a novella, and at the height of my job unhappiness also. And then once I quit my job, I finally published that. And then that was kind of when I realized that this is something that I would really like to do long term. If I could just figure out marketing, then I'd be golden, I feel like, because that's so hard.
Girl.
It's impossible.
There needs to be warning labels. Like, if you want to become an indie author, marketing is going to be your bane of existence.
Yes. It is that try every day and maybe you'll succeed one time kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I did just take an indie author marketing workshop online, so I'm hoping that helps.
Yeah.
I just got to implement it and create a strategy and all of that.
I think that's the tools for starting any business, right? Or doing any venture, even if it's not just a business, but it's something that you want to go, you learn what you can, put it through the sifter and see what works for you.
Yeah. That's what a lot of this year has been, is trial and error, is what works and what doesn't, and what do I enjoy and what do I maybe want to outsource that I don't enjoy. And I like that process, though. I like figuring out how to do something. It gets the creative side of the right brain going, because my previous job was all left brain, so I haven't gotten to be on the creative side in a while, and it's been nice.
Yeah. I think figuring out the systems, and that's also exciting too, because like a lot of people are like, I want to become a best-selling author. Well, what about the fun stuff in between? What can you do along the way that makes it to where it's also worth it if you don't become a best-selling author? Because in the end of the day, time's going to go by, and either you're going to reach that goal or you're not. What can you do to enjoy it regardless of what happens as you're going towards that?
Yeah. And I think, I imagine we all would love to be best-selling authors. And I tried to think a couple months ago about what success really means to me and what it looks like. And I kind of came up with, of course, financial success is wonderful, and name recognition and a bunch of people buying your books. But because the ACOTAR series was that escape for me and a way for me to deal with my difficult emotions, my goal, the way I would feel successful, is if I could create a fantasy world and characters that did the same for somebody else that was going through a difficult time. And I hate to say it, because I have to say, oh, I'll feel successful if you're having a bad time in your life. But I would like to be a place that people could go to and deal with whatever it is that's going on. Because the reality is, at some point, we're all going to have difficult issues. So I would like to be a safe place for people to go in the literary world. That would make me feel successful.
That's awesome.
I think that's a huge piece, though. Like, just knowing, because bad shit happens, and that's not something that, the severity of the bad stuff varies person to person, but it all happens to everyone. All of us have our bad, dark days. And knowing that your goal is to brighten someone's day, to let them have that space from their life to where they can process their emotions, and that is what you look at as success, that is huge. That means that while you are searching for success, you are also changing lives.
It feels like a lot of pressure. Now that I say that, I'm like, oh my God, what if I can't do that?
But it's ultimately, it's you're providing the opportunity. It is their responsibility to own their own issues and safe space to pick up the book. So there, I just relieved you of your pressure.
Yeah, for sure.
You're providing the opportunity for them to make the choice.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That would be great, because there's also a lot of, negative ways you can deal with emotions, and books kept me from doing that too. That kept me from turning to alcohol, kept me from doing other things that would have been unhealthy ways to cope. And so I think reading is a wonderful way to cope, and I would like to be that for somebody.
Yeah. I need to know, just because my mind is like bugging. Did you ever read the first book?
I was wondering the same thing.
No, I just said, nah, I'm not interested. No, I finished Mist and Fury, and then I went back and read Thorns and Roses, and then I went and read Wings of Ruin. So I went 2, 1, 3, 4, 5, however many there are.
That's
Were you
So I read
glad that
them a
you
little
did
How
it?
did you
bit.
feel?
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
How did you feel going from 2, because 2 is great, I love 2, and then going back
Yeah.
to 1 where it's like, oh my god, we're trudging through the snow.
See, and a lot of people say they don't really like the first one, but I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if that's because I had already read 2. But I found 1 to be very interesting, and there was never a point that I thought that it was really dragging. Um, I was excited to meet Reese because I had finished Mist and Fury, and that was my favorite one in the whole series after reading all of them. Um, but I still I really enjoyed 1, and things made a lot more sense. And I'm like, oh yeah, if I had read this in order, then this all these dots would have connected. But
So
I did read it.
good. Nicole, I have a question because I saw on your TikTok that you were on a retreat this weekend.
Yes, I just got back late this morning, actually. So, and it was fantastic. It was gloomy and misty and cold, and it was the perfect writing weather for being at a cabin. Had the fire going. We did some writing in the morning, and then we had lunch, more writing at night, and just kind of hung out and
So this was a group
did
of other
critiques.
authors and other indie authors that are in your area that you guys were like, let's get together.
Yeah, I started a local writing group, I think in the end of July, and I made a video on TikTok and said, "Hey, I live in this area. Does anybody want to meet up twice a month? The first meetup we'll do just a free write. We all hang out in a public place so everybody feels safe." So we meet at our local library, and then the second weekend of every month is like a critique. So we'll send each other 5 to 10 pages or whatever we decide on of our work. And then when we meet up, we rent a study room in our library and we throw it up on the TV and we go over everyone's critiques. And it's really nice. It's a small group, but that's totally fine. So we have a family cabin in Oklahoma. And so I said, does anybody want to go this weekend before Christmas? And we can do some writing sprints and we can eat a whole bunch of charcuterie. And that's exactly what we did. And it was great.
I am just a little bit jealous. That sounds amazing, and you cultivated that yourself. Like that is the best part.
Well, I feel like it was one of those things is if you can't find it, then make it. So I couldn't find the group, and I just decided I have a decent following on TikTok, and I imagine that there's enough people that'll see this that live in my area that we can meet up. And then we've became friends and see each other twice a month, every month. So I felt comfortable inviting them up there, and it was great. We went grocery shopping together. We cooked all of our meals. We stayed at the cabin. We didn't go out to eat. We went to the casino one night for a little bit, and I won $100. So I'm going to use that to commission some character art for my books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it was good. It was very relaxing and very fun.
How do you feel having support like that and having that community has helped your writing in general? Because that is something that I think people don't realize how it can affect you.
Yeah, it makes all the difference. I am a huge supporter of getting feedback, and that can be difficult for people because it's you're sending your work, you're sending your brainchild out there to get evaluated. I've never really had a problem with that. I enjoy critical feedback and never, unprofessional or disrespectful or anything, but I enjoy someone saying, "Hey, this doesn't really work here. This needs more emotion. I had these questions while I was going." And I learned that the first time by getting beta readers, because you can look at the same document 100 times and you won't see the problem. You give it to someone else and they can pick it out like that. And at times you're like, oh, okay, how did I not see that? And you might take it personally, but getting more eyes on it and people that have the same goal as you, they're also trying to get published, they're serious about their writing, is so unbelievably beneficial. You've got to find people you trust and you've got to be open to criticism. And if you can do both of those things, it's going to elevate your writing exponentially.
Yeah, I think that that's a skill. The being open to criticism and even, the reviews from from readers are great, but understanding that they're readers, that there's a difference between getting criticism from writers and getting criticism from readers. And I think that once you can get to the point where you can look for that criticism, look for those areas to improve your writing, that's where it really starts to take off, and you find like this nice little space that's your voice, that's your style, that's how you operate as an author.
I absolutely agree. It's that balance of being open to changing things, but not trying to please everyone. So then you lose your original storytelling voice. And I think that comes from working with the right people is probably the biggest thing. Because if you just said, hey, I need somebody to do this and give me a bunch of feedback, if you don't really know anything about them, if you don't know if they're an author also, if you're looking for specific author feedback, it might not be as beneficial, but it's helped. The feedback in general has just been immensely helpful. And then, like you said, it's reader feedback is more about the experience and author feedback is more about the structure. And they're both important, but you've got to reach out to the right people depending on what you're looking for.
Yeah. And just know that yeah, exactly. Right. And then the connections you make. I think that that's another thing that's so exciting too, is like the connections I've made through writing and the podcast. If I never make a penny from everything, that is a value in itself, of like just knowing the people, knowing Kathy, knowing all the people we've had on this show, the value that I get from hearing your guys' stories and knowing the stuff that you guys overcome and the paths that you get to where you are. It's worth it. And your guys' stories are inspiring.
Well, I'm glad that y'all are even willing to listen, so that's fantastic.
We love it.
We do, actually. Yeah. This is like
I love all of it. Like I especially even with social media, there's definitely a lot of bad with social media, but there's a lot of good. I saw that you guys had Carmen as a guest on recently, and I started following her on TikTok, and then that's how I found my other narrators that are going to be doing the audiobook for me in a couple months. And it's just everybody starts helping everybody.
Wait. Did we just make a connection? Is this the first time we're hearing that we made a connection for somebody and it like worked out? That is amazing.
Well, and I had started following her a little bit right before, and then I saw, I don't know when you guys, did you do the interview recently, or was the video just released recently? Because I saw it the other day and I was like, hey, I know who that is.
The video was released.
The interview was a little bit further back, but then it was released recently. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool. I'm like, hey, I know that person. I know these names. And I'm like, that's so cool.
There you go. Hey, look, you actually just did, our value of success is making connections for people. So you just validated that we're being successful in our eyes.
Yes. I'm glad I can help. You are.
Oh, that is awesome. And I can't wait for you to hear that, right? Like when you hear that moment that you're in your mind, your idea of success is helping someone. And then your reader comes to you and you're like, hey, you helped me through my dark days. And you're like, holy shit, I'm successful.
I'm so sorry you're going through dark times, but I feel great about myself right now. Please don't take that the wrong way. I'm here for you.
That's funny.
Oh, that's good.
Well, and I also like showing people that you can spend so much money as an indie author on doing all of this, but you don't have to if you don't want to. And I've always been the ball on a budget type. And if I want to spend money on something, significant money, I'll save for it. But usually I try to find efficient, budget-friendly ways to do things. And so I like making videos to show people that, sure, you have to have different expectations. If you pay less for a cover, it might not be as intricate as somebody who paid $1,000 or whatever. But I've had a lot of people who I've just put out there, hey, these are the free resources. You can write on Readsy or Google Docs, or you can get a cover. You can do your cover for free or whatever. And they send me messages saying, I've had this story in my head for years and I didn't know what to do with it. And now, because I watched a few of your videos, my book is coming out next month or something like that. That is really cool to be like, I didn't know where to go to get all these things done. And then I had a little playlist curated for them. And then, they're saying my book's coming out next week, or because I watched these, you know, I finally had the courage to do it, or I thought I couldn't do it because I didn't have any money, and that feels good to have people be able to get their dreams out there and not have money be the barrier.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I feel like everyone has at least one good story in them. And that is something that I agree with you. Like, if you had a mentor or someone to show you the paths of like you can do it, and it's not so overwhelming and as daunting as you think it is, it makes it to where it's more accessible for a lot of people. It's something that they now in their mind they're like, oh, I can achieve that. I can do that. And, you know, whenever we first started talking about that and they compare themselves to us, they're like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it. And like, you know, you're like, wait a minute. But no, it's just them realizing that they're so much more capable of what they think that they can do.
Yeah, exactly. I think about that too. I'm like, is that a backhanded compliment or is it? But I know
If you
what
can
they
do
mean.
it, I can do it.
Yeah, like, well, if she can pull that off, then yeah. I agree too. It's so much easier when you break something down into digestible pieces and realize, oh, okay, I'll do this first and then this and then this versus write a book, publish it. There are a million things that happen in between them. So if you show the stepping stones and break it down, it's way less daunting.
Well, even people who, so like me, I wrote a book and then I published it. Like that was what I did in the beginning, and I did it so wrong. I did everything that you shouldn't do, I did. And so now looking back to where I can provide value for someone who might not have, like, they feel like they're having to do it alone, but they're still wanting to do it. They're still putting in all the effort. But all of the mistakes don't have to be things that they go through. If they find content that like you do or we do, and it helps them just realize, oh, my intentions were write, publish. And now I know I have to write, I have to edit, I have to send to betas, I have to get feedback, I have to do ARCs, I have to do. And so that allows it to where when you write and you publish and nothing happens because it's not the best and it's kind of shit, it doesn't defeat you of like, I shouldn't be an author. It's like, oh, it's just not ready. That was my first draft that I published. I should probably pull that and redo it.
First draft. That's very courageous of you. I applaud you for doing that. Writing and publishing.
I hope,
I'm getting this thing out there.
I hope no one reads Wink. That was my first romance book that I wrote, and I pulled it, and I'm like, I get a lot of feedback of like people liked it, but it just was so unfinished.
So Nicole, are you strictly fantasy writing, or are you fantasy romance, romantasy? What are you?
Excellent question, Kathy. Thank you for asking it. I don't know. What I would like to be is more high fantasy with romantic subplots. So I'm a big fan of slow burn and relationships kind of evolving naturally. So I find that I want romance and I want the spice in my stories, but I don't want it to be at the forefront in the way that it is in romantasy. Because I really am getting into building intricate worlds and I really like the high fantasy side of things. So I'm trying to kind of blend. I'm just using all the keywords I can in my own marketing is dark, high fantasy, adventure, romance. That's my goal. Is all of those together into a
Randie and I
series
make up tropes and genres all the time, so you can do it.
Yeah. I just put all those words together and make it one thing.
We do book reviews and we're like, yeah, she believes that she's like this superhero and has to take everything. Oh, she's got the superhero syndrome. Yeah, that's it. We're going with that.
That's the
we'll
trope.
Just make shit up.
Yeah, we do.
But honestly, it's good because we have the same kind of tropes that, you know, creating something new, or like people are talking about now, the micro tropes, to try to just say, well, enemies to lovers is great, but what kind? Like, give me something more that can help me separate this fantasy book from this fantasy book. So I'm all for superhero syndrome. I think that's a good trope.
I think tropes are an interesting topic in general. Like, before you think about, 10 years ago, even, it was genres. What genre do you read? It wasn't.
It was
tropes.
very simple. And had romance.
Yeah.
Mystery, thriller, horror. Like, that's it. And like nonfiction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's like, yeah. But now it's even, people are wanting more. They're like, okay, cool, enemies to lovers, but how? Like, they want more detail, and it's almost like you have to do a synopsis to the readers of like what they're going to get before they, and I love it. I think that's awesome, because people are realizing what they like, and that they want to know, is this going to provide me what I like? So I'm not spending, days on this book and then I'm not getting what I thought I was going to get.
Yeah. And that was a big part of when I was looking for ARC readers, is making sure that I give them the proper expectations. So I was saying that this is a D&D, Dungeons and Dragons inspired world, but you don't need to know D&D to be able to understand it. So that was a way for me also to find my target reader. I'm trying to think of my marketing terms I'm supposed to use. My target reader, and to
the people who want to read it.
Yeah. And I had a lot of people comment on that video, and they said, you had me at D&D, or this piqued my interest because of this, and trying to be specific while also saying this is a high fantasy, this is a slow burn, grumpy sunshine, things like that. I was trying to get a little more.
I saw Shadow Daddy in one of those. So
yeah. That's another term I'm trying to take advantage of.
As soon as Kathy got on today, she's like, have you seen her videos? I want to go read her books.
Shadow Daddy.
Yeah, I got nervous about that because there's so many Shadow Daddies, right? And it's like, are people tired of that yet? I can't, I'm trying to figure out if it's, yeah, I don't think they are either, but I was like, should I use the term? Should I disguise 100%. It differently? Should I just, trial and error?
There's a whole group of readers that the more triggers and like darkness there is, they're like, that is an automatic buy for me.
Give me all the problems and the red flags, and I want to read it.
Yes. What does that say about us? I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, I know. We're not going to look at my TBR. That's all I got to say.
But that's also, I think, the beauty of it is the safety of fiction, is you get to explore all these dark themes, and it's not physically happening to you, maybe, or something you went through, but it's that you get to kind of see all these things that hopefully wouldn't happen in the real world to you or to other people or something like that, within the confines and the safety of fiction, which is cool.
And I think that the book world is starting to build this resilience of judgment. Like, we're starting to get to the point to where it's like, if you're gonna yuck my yum, then fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, it's no longer like, it's not really any more of the breaking down, like feeling attacked, feeling like people are, we just don't care anymore. Like, we're getting to the point to where like people within the book world, they're not as affected when someone says they don't like shadow daddies, or they don't like, monster romances. It's just like, cool, that's what you don't like, I do, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It's like, if you don't like it, you don't have to read it. No one's forcing you to. We'll just move on. And that's how I've always felt about it too. I've never felt the need to say, I absolutely hated this for X, Y, and Z. Nobody really cares about my opinion about it. And if they like it, they like it. Why am I trying to ruin their day? But
yeah, I do think that there's a space though for being able to still say that we didn't care for something. I think that taking that away takes away some of our authenticity, because like when we do reviews, we have been very conscious of making sure we don't bash anyone for what they enjoy, but we still give our honest opinions of like, we didn't care for it, and that's okay. But it wasn't a bad story. It wasn't badly written. It wasn't, but I think that there's still a space that people need to remember that they can disagree with stuff. They can not enjoy stuff, and that's okay too.
Yeah. And we can still be friends.
And that's what I think too. But sometimes I see some videos and it's like, if you don't agree with me, then block me right now. I'm like, man, okay.
Done.
I don't want to, but I guess I have to since you told me I do.
Yeah. I have no problem with someone saying I thought the pacing was slow. And even for my stories, that's one thing, talking to my other author friends, is like, how do you handle bad feedback? How do you handle negative reviews? And truthfully, I try to look at what they said and say, oh, okay, are they right? Is this an issue? And should I go back and look at this? Or if I look at, a review that says, I don't like fantasy books, I'm not going to take that personally, because they just don't like fantasy. So you got to find a way to separate yourself a bit from those kind of things, and understanding what feedback you should really internalize.
And the funny thing is that I have a really good author who received a negative comment from someone on her book, like, like it was super negative, like, how dare you write something
Not
like that? It's like,
yeah.
corn or whatever. And there was like so many comments afterwards going, really? Okay, one click. Let
Yeah.
me go find
Yeah.
it. It brought the attention to other people who were like, yes, that's 100% me.
Because what one
Exactly.
person
Yeah.
doesn't like, other people could like.
Yeah.
So
Yep. Yep. Exactly. I think that's such a good point, Kathy, because if you explain it in a way of like what you didn't like about it, that is also sort of a review for someone who does like that stuff.
Yep.
That's a great
That's why
point.
I've had that. I've been looking at my reviews for Shadowbound, and it's, oh, this was a little too heavy for me, and there were too many things and too graphic. And then other people were like, yeah, I loved it when he did this and he beat the hell out of this guy. And it's like, you never know what is going to resonate with people, so you got to write what you want to write. And but I still look at all the negatives, and I will say I feel like the some of the 2 stars I've been looking at, even though the people didn't like the story, they were respectful with their reviews, or they didn't like a few things. A lot of them said they would still read, they'd still give another book of mine a chance, which I'm going to call that a win. Because if
Right.
I felt like something was a 1 or 2 star read, I might not pick up another book from that author. I don't know. I might just say this isn't for me.
That
But
brings
I'm
up a
still going to
really good other question. So are you planning, or do you have any other book ideas kind of mulling around in your mind that are not fantasy, that maybe are hockey romance or rom-com, or I don't know?
I have nothing as light and happy as rom-com. I have horror books planned that are
She's
based
like
off
the
of
other
weird.
direction.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, we'll slide to this side of the
Oh,
scale,
that's
but
so funny.
I've got my horror book pseudonym picked out. I've got ideas that are based on really weird dreams that I have, because I have bizarre dreams. So they're written down, and I would like to do that, but I'm trying to stay focused on my main projects right now. But I think that would be a
Damn,
lot of
that's
fun
so
to
hard though, isn't it?
oh my gosh, it's the curse of being a creative, of I've got to do this and this and this and this, and I can't physically do it all at once, but I want to.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to keep my blinders on, but sometimes
Because
it's
Randie, she
difficult.
writes fantasy, but she also does romance.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you
No, I
feel
don't.
like
And
I
YA.
cross
love.
genre is difficult to like find readers for both, or they trust you in one genre and then
You
or
have
do
to
they know you?
completely rebrand yourself unless you have unless you have the authors or the readers who are like, I enjoy multiple things. You have to rebrand yourself, and it's almost like starting completely over when you come up with a new pseudonym and you go into a new genre. If you don't have enough people within your current followers that will shift over that and also enjoy those other things, it is very much like just kind of starting over, which can be scary, but also it is so much fun to connect with the other side of the world that you probably would not have reached with what you're writing right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. That you're reaching out to 2 different groups, and then a small percentage that probably like both, and
Yeah,
that's
and
a
it's
lot of work. So
exhausting.
I'm
Yeah,
impressed.
it's because then you got to do new websites, new social media, and that's what kills my motivation is when I'm like, I have one social media that I would just like to post everything on. I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have to do 5 different social medias for 5 different things.
Yes,
So I
it's
know one
exhausting.
author that says this is her main author name, writing as this other, pseudonym, which is the YA, and all of her stuff is on the same website, like everything. But
Yeah.
she didn't do it to, like a lot of people have different names because they don't want their kids or whatever. They don't want people to see, if they're writing spicy stuff, they probably, for whatever reason, they don't want that to be out there. So if it's not a hidden thing, then maybe that would be, gosh.
Yeah.
something that sounds like people.
There's so many cool things to do and so many ideas floating around up here that I gotta do something with them, regardless of how much work it takes. I gotta get it out.
So are you wanting to shift completely into writing full time, and that's like the goal in stepping away from, or are you already there? What does that look like for you right now?
So I'm full time in the sense that this is what I'm doing with all of my time. Now, could I financially survive on my own? No. So I have a wonderful husband and we talk about money all the time and we have a great savings account and everything. And if I was by myself, I would have burned through my savings that I had because I was wanting to start a business a few years ago. So I had a good chunk set aside. And then when I quit my job, we talked about it and said, okay, I'm going to take this money for the business and I'm going to invest it in my new writing and author journey and stuff like that. So I would like to be, because yes, of course, I'd like to be financially successful, but I don't need to be making a huge amount. I just need, even though we're married and we share our money and everything is great, I still miss that independence of being able to say, okay, if something were to happen today, could I stand on my own 2 feet? And not being able to say yes to that answer has been a huge hit to my pride because I really enjoy earning money or earning enough money. And that's probably the only part I miss from the previous job. Well, not the only part, but, so full-time, financially successful, can hold my own is definitely a goal. But
I think that there's such a positive way to look at where you're at right now, though, right? Is that you have a partner who believes in you, and they're like, I don't need you to match my income. I don't need you to, be the other half of this. I want you to follow your dreams, and I'm here to support you while you do that. And then, later on down the line, when you get to the point to where you are making this income, because we believe in you, we know you're going to get there. It's going to shift in your mindset a little bit. It's going to become, oh, this is now my job. This is now the second income. And there is this place right now that you're in that you should totally savor that moment, because it's going to shift and then it's going to be different. And right now you have this amazing support system and this amazing sweet spot that you're in. I think that's pretty cool.
I do. I have to keep myself from saying, okay, everything is perfect, which means something has to go wrong. But I feel like we had our stuff that went wrong years ago and now we're past that. So I'm trying to really just enjoy all of this because I get to do whatever I want. I can wake up late. I can stay up late. I can write when I want to. I don't do much frivolous spending. I don't really buy a lot of things or just occasionally go somewhere. So it's like I really get to do whatever I want every day with a group of writer friends that support me, with family that supports me, and a husband that supports me. And nothing could be better. Nothing could be going better, really. So I am really trying to do what you said, which is really savor this point in time because things will shift for whatever reason in the future. So I'm very much enjoying it right now.
I just realized how you can become a millionaire. So what you need to do is you need to have your husband draw up a course of how to become that kind of husband and that support system so he can help other women become these authors who get to stay at home and do their creativity stuff, and you guys will make millions.
Yes, I'm all for that. And I really think it is too that if you've got to have somebody that you're comfortable with talking about money because that will change everything, right? And you've got to be on the same page, and if not, then that can cause a lot of problems. So I'm lucky that we see things the same way and we talk about it frequently and openly, and it's in a way that's not negative or anything like that. So it's great.
It says a lot too
for your work on that course that you were talking about. Though.
Yeah, exactly.
We're taking notes.
I definitely think that your input is valuable in there because even if you have a man and a partner who is willing to do that for you, you also have to be a good receiver of someone who's like that. You have to be someone who shows appreciation for what they're helping you with. And you are balancing things in a way that still is hugely contributing to your guys' life. Like, you are also a support system for him. If he's working and making the money, when he comes home, you're there for him. I imagine you have this balance that you wouldn't be as happy and as like what we see right now with you if it wasn't balanced. And so just guessing without knowing, you are balancing this situation with him 100%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm taking care of the home stuff, and then he's doing the work stuff. So I'll take the dogs to the vet, I'll do the cooking, I'll do the cleaning. It's like I'm a stay-at-home mom with no kids, like except for the dogs. And it's, I'll take care of this stuff because you're the one that is really making this possible right now and letting me be able to get out of bed at 11 a.m. and go get a bagel and come upstairs and write for 8 hours if I want to. And
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's great. So he's owning a business with his dad, and he goes golfing 2 to 3 times a week, which is his thing. And then I get to stay here and I make TikToks, which is my thing, and write. And it's like we have our own separate things, but together we work really well. And I couldn't ask for anything better.
Okay, I love that. I fucking love whenever people have autonomy but also togetherness. Like, you guys have your own things, you guys have your own identities, and then you have the thing that's together. That is what I think makes and breaks relationships. Because if you are together all the time and you don't ever have that separate, who are you? And if anything ever happens in that relationship, your identity is gone.
Yeah. And I see that in people that when you ask them something, everything becomes we. We don't like that restaurant. We didn't like that movie. I'm like, but you and I are talking right now. What did you not like about it? Oh, and then it's almost like they have to think about it. I'm like, you've got to, and I think that also comes from just naturally being a very independent person, that I like to have my own things. That's when I recharge, is when I do stuff by myself. But we also like to do things together. I mean, even though golf makes me so unbelievably angry because I'm not good at it, when the weather's really nice, I'll bring a book and I'll sit in the golf cart and just ride along, and he gets to drive me around and I get to be supportive of what he does, but I'm not active in it. And I'm still getting to do what I like, and we're together, but we also do it separately. So it works out.
I have to know, because I'm a huge nerd. You brought up D&D earlier. Do you guys play D&D together?
We don't. So I have to be careful when I say D&D, because I haven't started playing any like in-person tabletop game. Like, I want to, but I got into it from Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah,
because
I was
I'm seeing all the Astarian thirst trap videos on here. I'm like, I gotta play this game, and so we both started playing it. And then getting more into the world of it, because he's the kind of person too where once he gets a new fixation, he learns everything about it, even if he's not going to do anything with it. He's just like, I got to know what this means and this means. So we're kind of diving more into the lore of D&D, and I would like to start playing. He may or may not with me, but I would definitely like to in person.
Does he read?
Fun. Me and my husband play together.
Oh, you do? That's awesome.
Yeah.
He used to read a little bit more, but not too much. I'm definitely the reader in the in the duo.
So, okay, I have one more question, then we can get off this topic. When you started playing Baldur's Gate 3, did you stick with the Astarion, or did you go with another relationship with like Gale or Halcyon or?
So, I was planning to start with Astarion, and then Gale came on to me first, so I was like, all right, we're gonna do this.
Yep, I romance Gale too.
Astarion disapproves of everything I do, so I'm just gonna go with Gale because he likes me.
I am not bad enough for Astarion. I could not let that snake bite that little girl. I could not do some of the things that he was like, "Ah, you pussy." I'm like, no, love me.
It's just up in the corner, Astarion disapproves. I'm like, God dang it. Like,
God damn it.
Just setting myself back for this kiss hookup scene. So I'd have to go online and say, okay, what do I have to do in the game in order to get him to like me? And I just became a terrible person. But then we hooked up pretty quick, so it was great.
Kathy, I think we should play that game live. I think that should be something we do eventually.
I will watch that for sure.
Let's do it. I'm all for it.
I'll be in the comments saying a whole bunch of supportive things.
There will be so many F-bombs
throughout them. Well, there's straight up sexy scenes in there. You will like it. It's not just fantasy. So, we probably can't show live on those scenes because it is.
It's a good time, Tracy.
It's a good.
That brings us. That brings up a good question about your your romance, the romantic part of it. Mm-hmm. What is the spice level of, let's say, show?
I will say that I'm a huge fan of tension, which is why I like the slow burn. But when the spice hits, I really want it to hit hard. So it's like you're not going to get that in the whole book, but when it is there, I want it to be pretty good.
So 3 chili peppers,
it's
4
fairly.
chili out of 5.
And
is it on page?
Yes,
Okay.
on page. I would say it depends also, because I have a collection of spicy short stories, and those kind of vary between like 2 and 5 pepper, or probably 3 and 5 peppers. I would say for Shadowbound it might be at a 4. But I have some spicy short stories that are I had to take an emotional break from writing them because they were pretty hardcore, but they're a lot of fun. To have different levels of it depending on what feels natural to the characters.
I just realized I did not mute myself for that cough. I apologize, guys.
You're fine.
Okay.
It seems like everybody around me today is like on their loudest settings, so I'm like, mute. I'm trying.
They're not using their inside voices.
Yeah. Sorry. It is
Oh,
what
you.
it is. So, do you have a sequel to that? Is this a standalone that you wrote?
So I would say it's an interconnected series. So each book will read as a standalone, but all the books are going to be set in the same world. So each one will focus on different main characters, and then there will be little Easter eggs for characters from previous books as we go along. I've already dropped a few Easter eggs for future books in the first one, and then maybe some of the characters will either show up in the background, or maybe they will be in dialogue briefly and kind of have this big massive world that I created where some people may pop in and out as the series goes. So I plan to write an infinite number of books in the series. I've already got 5 planned. I was thinking of a 6th one on my way back from the writing retreat today, but I think I would really struggle trying to do an actual series because I have no clue how authors keep up with all of that information. I can't do it.
You were talking about free resources earlier. Obsidian is what I use, and it is you can connect topics together in this web, and it all just kind of goes together, and it is the only thing that keeps me from going insane.
Yeah. I've seen the pictures of like the connection thing, but I just get nervous because what if I think of something completely new that I want to implement 2 years from now, but it won't make sense because it wasn't mentioned in book 1. And I'm like, I applaud people who can keep all of their things in line for multiple books in a series. I don't think I'm there yet.
That's where you do like a 2.5 little
like a little novella
scene, or like just like
I have plans for that too. I've had some requests for that, for some more of the main characters from Shadowbound, from the male main character's point of view. So some of those are in the works, and then possibly little mini audiobooks with the male narrator who's going to be voicing the male main character in Shadowbound.
Have you done a reveal yet, or can you
reveal for the audiobooks? I've done it for the main one. So Shadowbound is getting a full audiobook, and then I haven't technically done a mini audiobook reveal yet, but it is coming in a video later today. So technically this is the first place.
Can you tell us who's narrating the main one? Because that's already been revealed, right?
Yes. Yeah. So the first one, Andy Eloise is going to be voicing Aurelia, the main female character, and Adam Hunter is going to be voicing Vade, the male main character.
Good choices.
So, thank you. I'm so excited. They're going to start in January, early February, and then hopefully it'll come out early March. So it'll be my first audiobook, and I'm super excited.
Yeah. Wait until you hear the first bits that you get from those narrators bringing your book to I cried. It is fantastic. It is like,
I can't wait.
The materializing.
Mm-hmm. It's like now they get to read it to me. I'm not telling myself my own story.
Yeah. Andy is amazing. She's fucking fantastic. Yeah. So
she's so nice.
She is. She's that's great.
She's great.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
amazing.
excited. I think their voices, as soon as I heard both of them, I pictured their voices for those characters. It wasn't like I just went looking for narrators. It was like, oh my God, that's Aurelia and that's Vade. And then it worked out to where I actually was able to get both of them. So I'm on cloud nine. Like
Heck yeah.
I got who I wanted, and they're, in connection with each other. And this will be Adam's first audiobook, which is exciting for him, and he's building his portfolio. And Andy's still fairly new, so it's like, and I'm a newer author, so we're all new doing this together, and
That's
it's really cool.
Yeah. I love the community that we're plugged into.
TikTok, and then they're going to take it.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. TikTok it's like whenever I find one narrator or person, you guys are all somehow connected together. Like everyone that we've had on here somehow knows somebody else or is connected to somebody else, and I love it.
Yeah, it's cool. Bringing us all together. So, terrible things happen on the internet, but also really cool things.
Oh God,
it's true.
Yeah. TikTok, that's a good kind of segue into where can we find you? What all platforms are you on, and what are your handles?
So my main platform is TikTok. I am under @bookish_heartbreak, or author Nicole Holland is the main thing that pops up. I do have the same @bookishheartbreak for Instagram, but I don't use it that often. And I do have a YouTube channel in the sense that I've created it, but I haven't put any videos on it. So that one is also author Nicole Holland. And then maybe depending on what goes on with the possible ban and things like that for TikTok, I may or may not expand, but those are all I have right now. My main one is TikTok.
Awesome. Well, I love talking to you. You are fantastic. I love that you went from, this really dark, depressed place to having this safe space within this book to becoming this safe space for somebody else. That is a beautiful arc there by itself.
Thank you. It's been a lot, and it's been really fun. It's the complete opposite of where I was and where we were as a couple like a few years ago. And it's just great that it's to this point now, and it all, everything affects everything, right? I wouldn't be here if I didn't have that. So it's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Testament to the dark times. Mm-hmm. They suck, but there's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Or not always, but
before the dawn, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, guys. Thank you for listening to this episode, and we cannot wait to see you on the next episode of L3.
Thank you guys for having me. I really enjoyed talking to you.
It was great.
Bye, guys.
Hey, guys. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Lemon's Listening Library. Remember, every story has a journey, and every journey deserves to be heard. Keep reading, keep writing, and keep listening.